In the history of Hollywood, some stories have bled beyond the screen. Some actors didn't just play characters who flirted with death. They seemed to script their own endings. From young rebels like James Dean to kings like Chadwick Boseman. From rappers who warned of their last days to movie stars trapped in cursed roles. Tonight, we uncovered 5 haunting tales of life imitating art. And stay with us until the end, because the last story may change the way you see Hollywood.
What's your next project?
It's called The Crow. I get to play a rock and roll musician. I get
Really?
to quote Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah?
And I get to return from the dead. Well, it means I'm wearing a bulletproof vest right now. And I just got shot 20 times. And I've worn squibs before, and I've gotten shot before, but I must say I have never been shot 20 times at once before, which is an experience I think everyone should have.
Is it an acting challenge that you would recommend for every actor?
It's an NAR day. It's a definite no acting required day when you get shot 20 times.
Brandon Lee wasn't just an actor, he was a legacy. The son of martial arts legend Bruce Lee, who himself died under mysterious circumstances. And when Brandon stepped into the role of Eric Draven in The Crow, the lines between fiction and fate blurred in ways that still haunt Hollywood. In The Crow, Brandon played a man who was murdered, only to rise from the grave, seeking vengeance. A character resurrected from death itself.
No, in fact, I am undead. And I frequently go on killing rampages. And watch, I'll put this cigarette out on my chin and it won't even hurt me.
This is a behind the things. We're not going to go too much into what the film is actually about.
Thank God.
The elements of the film, like, so your character, it's Eric, right? He's kind of has a dark side, but he's also a musician. You want to talk about that?
Well, the interesting thing about this character to me is that you're dealing with a guy who's literally been pushed to the limits of his own sanity, you know. And I think that something of the persona of the Crow that he takes on, he does because he himself can't necessarily deal with what's happening. And by creating this persona, he creates someone who can deal with what's going on.
But in March of 1993, during filming, Brandon would face a moment that mirrored his character's fate. During a pivotal scene, Brandon's character was supposed to be shot. The gun was meant to fire blanks. But due to a tragic chain of errors, a real fragment of a bullet was lodged in the barrel. When the trigger was pulled, Brandon Lee was struck in the abdomen. He collapsed instantly. At first, the crew thought it was part of the performance, but soon panic erupted. He was rushed to the hospital, and after hours of surgery, Brandon Lee was pronounced dead. He was just 28 years old. Brandon's death wasn't just a tragedy. It felt like a prophecy fulfilled. A young man playing a role where death is cheated, only to lose his own life in the process. Eerily, Brandon's father, Bruce Lee, had starred in a film years earlier called Game of Death. In it, Bruce's character plays an actor who was shot on set with a real bullet, mistaken for a prop. Bruce Lee would die before completing that film. Brandon's death seemed to echo the very storyline his father once filmed.
There's this wonderful quote from the book Sheltering Sky, where he says, "Because we do not know when we will die, we get to think of life as an inexhaustible well. And yet everything happens only a certain number of times, and a very small number, really. How many more times will you remember a certain afternoon of your childhood, an afternoon that is so deeply a part of your being that you can't even conceive of your life without it? Perhaps 4 or 5 times more, perhaps not even that. How many more times will you watch the full moon rise? Perhaps 20. And yet it all seems..."
Hollywood began whispering about the Lee family curse. Was it coincidence? Was it fate? Or something darker? In The Crow, Eric Draven famously says, "It can't rain all the time."
He couldn't have stopped.
It was a butt face. I could have made it. What are you supposed to be, a clown or something?
Sometimes.
It's more like surfing than skating. I wish the rain would stop just once.
Can't rain all the time.
Eric?
But for fans, the storm never truly ended. Brandon Lee became immortal, not for the life he lived, but for the tragic way he left.
Comes at me with the knife. Why so serious?
When Heath Ledger took on the role of the Joker, he didn't just play a villain, he became chaos incarnate. Critics called it one of the greatest performances in cinema history, but behind the painted smile was a darkness Heath couldn't escape.
What is it that you want to bring this character that we haven't seen before?
You're just gonna have to wait and see. And it's done too, so...
Are you done?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Do you have an idea how to... Did you really have the idea to how to play him? Or did Nolan say, this is how I play him?
It was one of those moments where I was asked if I would be interested in playing the Joker, and I knew 5 seconds later exactly how to play it. And I sat down with Chris and shared my thoughts with him, and they were identical to his, and we just kind of went from there, yeah.
Ledger's preparation was obsessive. He locked himself away, keeping a diary in the Joker's voice, filling pages with mantras of madness, sketches of violence, and dark jokes. He was chasing authenticity, but it came at a cost. By the time filming ended, Heath was exhausted, battling insomnia and anxiety. He admitted in interviews that he was sleeping just 2 hours a night. Doctors prescribed him a cocktail of medications: pills for rest, pills for focus, pills for pain. On January 22, 2008, Heath Ledger was found unconscious in his Manhattan apartment. He was just 28 years old. The cause? Accidental overdose, a lethal mix of prescription drugs. What made it haunting wasn't just his death, but his role. The Joker was obsessed with destruction, living fast, and embracing a doomed fate. And Ledger himself, in his final interviews, hinted at being consumed by the role. Even in his last film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, Ledger played a man whose life was a gamble with mortality. When he died before the movie was complete, 3 actors, Johnny Depp, Jude Law, and Colin Farrell, stepped in to finish his role. Each one represented a different version of his character, as if Ledger had already transformed into something beyond life. Heath Ledger didn't just give us the Joker. He gave us a chilling reminder of how art, when pushed too far, can take everything.
The youngest interviewer I've met yet.
Go ahead. Snowboarding dog. Snowboarding dog. Okay. I understand you love to snowboard and you love dogs, so this must have been really fun to make.
Yeah, it was fun. You would have liked it. Yeah, I love dogs. You like dogs?
Yes.
Do you have a dog?
Yes.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a mix.
Is she a mix?
Yeah.
Mutt. She's a mutt.
Yeah.
Mutts are the best, right?
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Do you have any dogs?
Yeah, I have one dog. His name is Boone. He's a Chesapeake Bay Retriever. He looks like you know what a Labrador is?
Yes.
Have you ever seen a chocolate Labrador? He looks like a chocolate Labrador, right? He has the same body lines and the same color, but he has a woolly coat. He's got curly hair.
Paul Walker was the golden boy of Hollywood action, the charming face of Fast and Furious. On screen, he lived life a quarter mile at a time. Off screen, he loved cars just as much, but that passion would also cost him his life. Franchise, death was always lurking. Characters were lost in high-speed crashes, gunfights, explosions, and Paul's own character, Brian O'Connor, was no stranger to close calls. That line wasn't just a character's motto. It mirrored Paul's real-life philosophy. He was a car enthusiast, spending weekends racing and collecting rare models. Friends said Paul lived for adrenaline. On November 30th, 2013, Paul attended a charity event for his foundation, Reach Out Worldwide. Afterward, he hopped into a Porsche Carrera GT driven by his friend, Roger Rodas. Minutes later, the car lost control. The car slammed into a tree at over 90 miles per hour, bursting into flames. Paul Walker, just 40 years old, was killed instantly. What haunts fans is how closely Paul's on-screen life mirrored his fate. His films celebrated speed, danger, and the thrill of pushing limits. And his final farewell scene in Fast and Furious 7, a brotherly goodbye to Vin Diesel, became one of cinema's most emotional farewells. Almost as if Paul had scripted his own ending. Paul Walker lived fast, and though his time was cut short, his legacy, like the cars he loved, still races on. River Phoenix was supposed to be the next James Dean, charismatic, talented, a heartthrob with depth. But like Dean, his flame burned too bright and went out too soon. In Stand By Me, River played Chris Chambers, a troubled kid destined for tragedy. In the film's epilogue, Chris grows up to become a lawyer, only to be stabbed and killed while breaking up a fight. A shocking foreshadowing of River's own fate, gone far too young. On October 31st, 1993, River Phoenix collapsed outside the Viper Room, a Hollywood nightclub owned in part by Johnny Depp. The cause, drug overdose. He was just 23 years old. What makes River's story haunting is how often his roles dealt with fragility, loss, and self-destruction. In My Own Private Idaho, he played a drifter addicted, lost, searching for love, but spiraling into despair. Off-screen, River too struggled with the pressures of fame, the temptations of Hollywood nightlife, and the contradictions of being both idolized and deeply isolated. He wanted to tell human stories, but his own became one of the saddest in Hollywood history. A star on the rise who, like his character Chris Chambers, was taken away in a moment of senseless tragedy. River Phoenix's death shocked a generation, and in a cruel twist of fate, his most iconic role had already written his ending.
You were wrong to abandon him. I chose my people. I chose Wakanda. Our future depended. You are wrong! All of you are wrong! To turn your backs on the rest of the world! We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more.
Chadwick Boseman was more than an actor. He was a symbol, a king on screen, a warrior off it, and an inspiration to millions who never knew the pain he carried. He embodied legends, he became history, and then, in Black Panther, he became myth. But behind the smile, behind the strength, was a secret. In 2016, Chadwick was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. He fought in silence. Through chemotherapy, through surgeries, he kept working. He never told the world. Instead, he gave us some of the most powerful performances of his career.
In my culture, death is not the end.
With words, he predicted it with grace. And in silence, he left behind a lesson. That true heroes are measured not by how long they live, but by how deeply they inspire. So, what do we make of this? 5 legends, 5 stories, 5 lives that seem to foreshadow their own endings. Coincidence? Or something darker? Is there a curse in Hollywood? Or is it the nature of fame itself? Burning too bright, too fast, until the light fades. Do these stories reflect prophecy, or the unbearable weight of living under the world's gaze? What's undeniable is this: these stars may be gone, but their shadows stretch across generations. They left us not just with roles, but with questions. Questions about fate, about fame, about the price of immortality. If you want more untold Hollywood stories, make sure you hit subscribe, because what's coming next, you don't want to miss.